What I'm going to take you through is sort of an expansion of what the Honorable Paul Hellyer just has shared with you, and go into some granular detail on the evolution of secrecy and what we can do about it. There is, as you all know, and everyone in this room, that you're not strangers to this, but some of the thousands of people on the webinar may be new to this concept, is that there has been 100 years of illegal activity, not 70 years since Roswell. And since the early 19-teens, and probably before, we have had breakthroughs in technology, which I rather kindly call the gangbangsters, and cartels of various types, oil, what have you, have kept away from the public. Most people don't know that in the 1920s, T. Townsend Brown was doing experiments with high voltage systems where you could have a crystalline structure, and with the correct electronic signal going into it, have that object levitate. Sounds familiar? Like a UFO? 1920s. This was reproduced in Germany in the Koloski-Frost experiment in late 1920s, 28, 29. Of course, T. Townsend Brown's work was subsumed by covert programs eventually, and the RAND Corporation. And what we are looking at today is a civilization on Earth that is dying because it has been strangled to death. And we are 100 years of lost evolution and of lost development as a people. And this is our chance to get it back. Now, a lot of people say, why did you do this film Unacknowledged? Which, by the way, those of you who contributed to that, it was crowdfunded, raise your hand. Everybody give an applause for the, that's how we made it. Okay, so that documentary, which some people go, well, you know, you didn't go far enough in it. I said, this documentary wasn't made for you all. It was made for 7.2 billion people out there who don't know anything about this, okay? So if you're gonna be compassionate, you can't stay in your bubble. You need to go out of your bubble, and you need to reach out to the rest of the world. Now, we're very fortunate that we have a major distributor for that film, The Orchard, and that is now, I think we're 8 weeks on being #1 on iTunes worldwide. I think Richard Gere was miffed when his new movie came out and we beat them. No relationship. He's Gere, I'm Greer. So what is really important about Unacknowledged is that, and I'm going to just encapsulate it. You're going to see it tonight, and then we're going to have a Q&A after the film is shown. It's really an attempt to put together a taste of the evidence that's compelling, all from government sources, military witnesses, government witnesses, documents, etc. But then go beyond the, let's call it the ephemera, the sort of phenomenon of passing events and evidence. You know, after you have what, 500,000 or 1 million cases that are in the UFO reporting system, we have enough evidence. What's the secrecy about? But more importantly, how could they do this? How is it structured? And the name of the film comes from the first word that I learned of a special project category in the early 1990s, and this was just before I was briefing the director of the CIA. And unlike Paul Hellyer, he went on to not only defame me, but deny the meeting took place, and he took a golden parachute out of the directorate of the CIA onto the chief counsel for Booz Allen Hamilton, the contractor that Snowden worked for the NSA. And of course, he knew what side that his bread was buttered on, and did not want it to be known when I initially, after he was out of office, disclosed the nature of that meeting. But that's a side parentheses. If we had every one of, as I said before, of the integrity of Paul Hellyer, we wouldn't be in the world we have today. Now, what has happened is that the Unacknowledged Special Access Projects, which is the proper name for a super secret black project that is running sub rosa, beneath the surface and illegally, is that those evolved over the last century. And they took on a huge increase back in the era of the Roswell event. Just a point of note, Operation Paperclip was actually run by OSS, and OSS evolved and became the CIA. Now, I know something about this, having briefed CIA directors and put briefings together for them. Now, this Operation Paperclip wasn't just because we wanted the best and brightest German minds, who were very much, many of them, Nazis, but we wanted the technology. And I'm going to share something that's a little bit astonishing. Haven't shared this in any real detail yet, but I think I should. And about 6 months ago, I had a 7-hour meeting with the son of Senator John Warner, who I had fingered as a member of this cabal many years ago. And Senator John Warner, who was not Mark Warner currently of Virginia, he's the Senator John Warner of Virginia who's retired. He had been a Undersecretary of the Navy and had been very connected to these classified projects from early on in his life. He married Paul Mellon's daughter. Now the Mellon family, Paul Mellon, around the time, one of the few billionaires in the world at that time, went over in 1945 to Germany with General George S. Patton and some others to retrieve a partially functioning Nazi anti-gravity system that they were working on. And that was their secret weapon that they were going to win the war with. But they didn't get it perfected before we got the atomic bomb. And the rest, as they say, is history. However, an interesting side note to this, now I learned this, that Senator Warner's son, who's about my age now, a little bit younger, said to me, you know, Dr. Greer, I have to admit that my family are fascists. He just flat out said it, completely. And he is not. But he said that he's come to realize that this is very much the case, and the people that they have worked with are also fascists. They are not interested in a democratic society and an open and free society. So what happened at this point is, believe it or not, as hard-ass as General George S. Patton was, he wanted this technology developed quickly and released to the public because he saw the humanitarian value of it. Free energy, no surface roads, no pollution, etc. and so on. They killed George S. Patton. He was assassinated. And this is known by the Mellon family. Now, because of this, what happened, and this is 45 before Roswell, a chill went through what I call the white hats in the military industrial complex, because not all of them, you can't paint all of them with the same broad stroke. There were many of them who wanted this to come out and were stopped. And the ones who wanted to maintain the status quo, predictably, are the ones who benefit from the status quo of endless war and the centralized gangbangster system. Now, these folks work hand in glove with large banking cartels and oil cartels. David Rockefeller was mentioned earlier. And yet there are people in those families who are trying to defect. For example, Lawrence Rockefeller, an early supporter of disclosure and the man who set up the briefings for Bill and Hillary Clinton and the materials we put together in the 90s, he was opposed to this secrecy. He wanted to make open, peaceful contact with these civilizations, and he knew we were in trouble.